Good evening. My name is Joe Sam Robinson. It's my pleasure to have with us once again Dr. Buck Melton, who many of our viewers know is a racehorse getting to run in the political landscape. He's ridled up, and I don't know, Buck, if you plan to get it as a write-in vote for the governor race here or senator race, or which way would you sail your ship?
Well, before I say that, I simply have one question for you.
Yes.
What did I ever do to you to make you want to thrust me into this current political nightmare that we have?
One thing is, Buck, is the country needs people with your intellect and abilities, and I mean, I'm distressed at the comparison of your great abilities as contrasted with our present political class.
Well,
so that's what provokes this. I'm trying to encourage you, to tilt you to take that step.
I will take that as a backhanded compliment.
It is a backhanded compliment.
And I understand, I agree.
It really is something, isn't it?
I think that any reflective thinking person is more and more put in the mind of Yeats's Second Coming. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world, the best have lost all conviction, and we won't even talk about the worst.
And the sinner cannot hold.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
I think that's not a bad poem.
Yes.
Well, on that note, moving past that, we can move on to other discussions. Now, we've had an earlier conversation about the Roe versus Wade dilemma the Supreme Court and the nation faces. And I think we talked a little bit, we made an effort to go into the sausage factory in the Supreme Court as to what they do or don't do. And I think we've sort of taken the conversation along to the point that somehow the justices are debating the story, and they're going to hatch out a preliminary opinion and send it around for other people to see.
Yes. They have the oral arguments, they read the briefs, and then they have the conference. Now, I said in our last episode that when I was teaching law at the University of North Carolina, we actually had 4 former Supreme Court clerks on faculty, because a Supreme Court clerkship is the gateway to great and wonderful things, either academic or business. And the person who had clerked for Rehnquist informed me at the time that the conference wasn't even happening anymore. The left-wing and right-wing justices found each other so distasteful that they didn't even like meeting physically in the conference. They would just do it all by email.
Really?
Now, there are exceptions to that. Justices Scalia and Ginsburg, who were poles apart, were actually personally great friends and got along well. They shared a love of opera. I think you're not going to see that kind of friendship across ideological lines very much anymore. But it used to be, and to my knowledge perhaps still happens, that the conference takes place, the 9 justices get together. No one else is allowed in the room, not even the clerks. This is the sanctum sanctorum. If the Supreme Court is secretive, this is the epicenter of the secrecy. If an important message comes in for one of the justices, one of the clerks or one of the secretaries knocks on the door, and the junior most associate justice must go and answer the door. So nobody comes in. The votes are taken, and at this point the votes are just generally taken up or down, yes or no. And if the Chief Justice is in the majority, the Chief Justice assigns someone to write the majority opinion.
Yes.
If the Chief Justice is not in the majority, then the Senior Associate Justice, who is in the majority, will assign the opinion to be written.
Could the person just say, I want to write it myself? Could
Absolutely.
the Chief Justice, I want to write, or the senior person?
Absolutely. And occasionally when you have a prima donna, and I suppose you could say that most people who make it to the Supreme Court,
at least have that.
If they're not prima donnas when they get there,
it's quite a responsibility.
It turns it into them.
Yeah, of course.
And so they may very well assign themselves the really juicy opinions that that's going to let them go down in history. So So you may know how you're going to vote and how it's going to turn out. So we'll take abortion as an example. Yeah, I'm going to vote to overturn abortion. But you don't know what the reasoning necessarily is going to be. You probably know it within broad outlines. But you're dealing with the law here. Every word makes a difference. So the justice writes the draft opinion and then circulates the draft opinion to the entire court, not just to the people who voted with the majority,
yes.
But to all 9 justices. And based on what that opinion says, one or more justices may change his or her vote.
Now, the initial, it seems to me, a really extraordinary thing is that the justices are going to debate, should we overturn this? Yes, no. We're in the 9 people in the room. And what sort of facts would they argue? Like, whatever. I mean, this law has stood for 60 years. It would be terrible to change something like this. Many people will be terribly injured if we change it. Or does someone say, well, if you look at the actual reasoning or the precedents, and we've got some. I mean, it seems to me the conversation could go on for hours with 9 people in there.
Oh, yes.
I mean, 3 days, 4. I mean, we don't know what happens.
Yes.
Do we? And there's the court has other work to do too.
Exactly. Yes.
Is the press is the system there to for these 9 people to just to fulfill their responsibilities? Is it? I mean, do they have? If you take my point, I mean, they've got a grand total of 36 clerks floating around. That's 45 people. Thousands of things are coming before them. The arguments are arcane, complicated, unintended consequences of anything that's there going off the rails, and any decision could be catastrophic. The country is affected enormously. And one of the things I've heard said is the Chief Justice I hope he's not offended by what I say here, but an observer would think, well, he's not going to get into the weeds about whether each decision is right or wrong, but is looking at the totality of the impact of the Supreme Court on the culture of the nation. So he's not so much worried about the logic behind a particular reasoning, but the greater impact of the system, the checks and balances, and making sure that the court doesn't disturb the tranquility of the country. I mean, I don't know. I'll throw that out. Hope you weren't offended if you're watching this, Mr. Chief Justice.
Yes.
But
you're speaking specifically of Chief Justice Roberts.
I am.
Yeah.
But the takeaway message is you're getting into this, and it's presenting the dilemma that imagine the passions that occur around this ruling. I mean, it's extraordinary. And is there enough time? I mean, weeks of going back and forth. Have everything been probed? Whatever. And the court has all this other work to do, all kinds of other decisions to them. It's like, playing squash or something. The things are, the ball is just going back and forth, up and down, this and that, this and that. I guess what I would say is maybe the system is not perfect, but moving past this, the way this decision happened, the decision is hatched out, and then people read the decision. Now, there's no kind of law against either a justice or a clerk publicizing this, as I understand it. I mean, there should be certainly punished, but there's not any. This is not some kind of you violated some kind of law if you send this out. It's not private property. So
this is not, and there's been a lot of talk about this. This is not secret information. I mean, there are laws on the books that prohibit the dissemination of sensitive information or privileged information.
Yes.
But these draft opinions apparently are not that. Now, these clerks may have to sign confidentiality and non-disclosure agreements, so it would be a breach of contract if they did.
Is that a criminal offense?
No, that's not.
Find you
not under federal law. I would say that if a clerk does this, and if the clerk's identity becomes known, then I think in legal circles, in terms of the legal career, I won't say that that clerk's career is toast, because in this day and age, there may be
exalted. They'd be exalted.
There may be a law schooler somewhere out there who
Of course there would be.
who would
Of
do
course
that.
there would.
I think the one thing that is certainly not going to be cut off is if this clerk comes out in public and says, I'm the one who did it, and you get a $30 million book deal out of that. Who cares?
$100 million.
Yeah, who cares about your budding legal career? You don't have.
Now, just to ask the question, so what I'm trying to sail the ship into this harbor is that there's a contentious world. I wonder how contentious the justices are. And if you, I would imagine, I'm just thinking about this, the decision is out there and the judge goes back to his or her clerks, and I'm sure they have conferences or meeting, and the judge is just furious and I can't believe it's coming down, and then the clerks are weeping, going back and forth. What can we do about it? We've got to do something. And even one of the justices could say something like, if you choose to go to the New Republic, I'll throw that out, or somewhere, you go and you reveal this, I will protect you. I'll make sure that no one does anything to you. And wink, wink, you do that. We've got to take drastic steps to preserve women's right to choose. Millions of ladies will be, in terrible situations and this and that. And so we just have to preserve this. It's whatever it takes. This is it's like standing up to Hitler, kind of, or what? At least in that sense. And it appears to me that something like this happened. And I mentioned the Chief Justice, is how he was an institutionalist trying to protect the deal. And the decision of what to do about this is in his hands, is it not? So I can't believe that the way this happened hasn't been discovered. I guess it's possible, but and might it not be discoverable because Chief Justice or the justices say, you can't talk to my clerks, or whatever the deal is. I refuse to let my clerks, all the liberal justices together, say all of our clerks are going to be protected here, and the Chief Justice could be stymied, or he could say, if I bring out really what happened, if I really bring that up, it's going to disturb the tranquility of the country, which is my major objective right now. And this is bad. This happens. I get it, but I'm looking at the situation 5 years from now. So we're going to get the decision out there. It looks like, for whatever, the votes are there. That's locked. This decision is going down. I know it's going to happen in whatever it is, and allegedly 2 weeks. Is that the story? In 2 weeks? When would the Supreme Court decide this?
The court's session usually ends in late June or occasionally very early July. No more, certainly no more than July the 4th. Right now, as we're recording this, I'm seeing that it is June the 15th.
Yeah.
So as a practical matter, we're really talking 2 weeks maximum.
Would they take it into the next term? Could they do that?
No, probably not. I suppose they could, but what's the point? They've already heard the arguments. There's been no other factual development. And I do want to make 2 points here. I want to go back to something you said earlier about taking a long time to figure out this case and deciding they got other things to do. Remember, no one in this life will ever have perfect knowledge. Look at the word decide. It literally means to kill off the options. At some point, decisions must be made. If you wait until you've got perfect information, you will wait forever to make the decision. And so, what's the point of holding over? Especially if this is going to be a decision to strike down Roe, a justice could retire, a justice could die. And I hate to have to say this, but in this climate, it is absolutely not beyond the bounds of possibility. A justice could be assassinated. Just in this past week, an attempt was made on Justice Kavanaugh's life. So, how far down that road of conspiracy do we want to go? It's terrifying.
And I'm going to just throw this statement out there. The fact was there are 29 Democrats that, whatever they are, the extreme leftist Democrats did not want to afford protection to the Supreme Court and their families in this climate. And they have protection as far as I know. The president has protection. Bill Clinton and Hillary have protection.
Well, the courts the Supreme Court justices do have protection. They're protected by the U.S. Marshals, but not nearly to the same level as.
But their families are not protected. Their wives are wandering around. Their children.
Yes. So. No, I have been at several functions with Supreme Court justices, some in the Supreme Court building itself, some not. And the security level is much, you could easily do something. And the fact that I believe Amy Coney Barrett's, they have seven children. And recently, the schools that these children attend, their names have, the schools' names have been publicized.
And their addresses are out there, and yes. That's pretty. I would say it's fairly outrageous.
So,
and it's the lack of civility, the general hatred,
yes.
that is surfacing everywhere in Washington. It's distressing. The country is at risk, I would say.
And I'll come back to that shortly, but the other thing I did want to bring up that you touched on is the Chief Justice is not the boss of the Supreme Court, or if he is, he's certainly not the boss of the other 8 justices.
Of course.
There's a very famous story from the early 1930s, true story, not apocryphal. I can't remember the justice that it was. It may have been Justice Sutherland or Van Devanter. And the Chief Justice at that point would have been, I believe, Charles Evans Hughes.
Yes.
And at one point, Hughes put out a memo saying, I want a conference this afternoon at 3 o'clock, which was not the usual time. And Sutherland, or if it was Van Devanter, who was known as being rather crotchety, called up the Chief Justice's secretary and said, tell the Chief Justice I don't work for him. Yes. Which is perfectly true.
Right.
So if an associate justice wants to shield his clerks, there are things
that's exactly
that the associate can do.
And this may be the conundrum that's faced. To me, it's unbelievable. I would have to say they're just not going to talk about it. Mm-hmm. That appears to me they're not going to talk about it. And the person that would have the responsibility to pursue this, I think, is the Chief Justice. Mm-hmm. And he's encountered he believes that going in, I'm speaking for whatever he's up to, but it appears to me that there's no upside to identifying what happened here. Now, the person that did it may come forward at another time and say, this is what I have to, or maybe get the $100 million for the book or whatever.
I would be surprised if they didn't. And this person will paint himself or herself as a martyr to the cause and will be celebrated. The damage to the Supreme Court. I frankly don't